To continue with the story, for more on this, we are now joined by Phakamile Hlubi Majola, who is the national spokesperson of Numsa. Phakamile, welcome to SA Today. I'm sure you've been listening in on that conversation. As Numsa, you too, I think, what is your standpoint? Let me take it from there.
Good afternoon, and good afternoon to your viewers, and thank you so much for having me on your show. It's been a very interesting discussion, particularly having the opportunity to hear from Comrade Aubrey on behalf of CWU. As Numsa, our position when it comes to the planned job cuts at the SABC, we're very clear that we reject them outright. We stand in solidarity with workers at SABC. We are a union that has an interest beyond just expressing solidarity. We have members at the SABC who are security staff, as well as cleaners in the cleaning department. We are not represented at the same level as CWU, certainly not. But the changes that happen at SABC have a ripple effect across the entire operation. And as a trade union that is operating also at other SOEs like at SAA and at Denel, we are seeing a repetition of a pattern where what workers are experiencing at SABC is exactly what workers are experiencing at other state-owned entities. And this is very deliberate. Our government is taking a decision and is implementing a plan to collapse our state-owned entities. And this was triggered in part by the budget speech, which was announced recently, where in that budget speech, the SABC was deliberately not given any funding. And the purpose of that, in our view, was to choke the SABC and force its management into taking drastic job cuts, as we're seeing today.
I'll ask you the question I asked Aubrey as well a short while ago. It's an SOE, yes, rightfully so. They're saying their wage bill is too high, as in many other SOEs, and this is a step that must be taken to save the corporation or to save the SABC in general. Your take on that?
Well, I think we need to really analyze that statement. It's not something that you should just accept on face value. And I've been listening very closely to what Comrade Aubrey has been saying, where he speaks about particular areas where intervention is needed. He talks about board fees and board members. He talks about the role of management. He talks about the fact that they have already cut jobs in various departments, and this has had an impact on service delivery. And this is the same excuse that we have been given at SAA, at Denel, and other state-owned entities. Our argument as Numsa is very clear. When you look at the way these entities are run, there are other areas where urgent intervention is needed. Bra Aubrey spoke about rampant mismanagement. We've heard that before. We've heard about it at SABC, at SAA. And in fact, SAA has collapsed today because of rampant mismanagement, because of failure of board members to act in the interest of the entity. Why are the heads of the board members not rolling? Why have they not cut the wage bill at the top level of executive management? Why are they attacking ordinary workers and their families? This is the strategy of this ANC government. Instead of dealing with where the problem actually lies, and that's where in the deployment of its cadres to critical positions, instead they have taken a decision where ordinary workers and their families must pay the highest cost for the failure of leadership. Failure of leadership at the highest level. So really, I think it is a moment in time where workers across union affiliation have to unite, because it is very clear that this government is determined to wreak havoc on workers and their families in order to continue the status quo. They've not made any interventions in the areas where urgent need is required. They've not taken decisive action in that regard. But workers are the ones who are being used as scapegoats for serious problems, serious mismanagement problems, and poor leadership at the highest level.
both yourself and CW as unions, you sit there, you're watching some of union members, I think they were speaking about they are now going to go home, not being able to take their kids to universities, not be able to put a roof over their heads, not be able to plan for their futures, because there is a proposal on the cards here at the SABC where possibly no salary increases for the next couple of years. There are plans to try and curb that salary bill as unions, where most of the time you're fighting to get your members' salary increases and a decent living wage. Your take on that as well, the human aspect of it.
Well, the impact is dire. I mean, just look at what's happening at SAA. For more than 8 months, workers haven't received an income, and workers have lost houses, they've lost assets. It's been a very, very painful story for workers at SAA, and they have paid very dearly for things that they had absolutely nothing to do with. I think the problems at SAA, and even if you look at SABC in particular, the problems at SABC did not come with COVID-19. The problems at SABC have been there for many years. And as Bra Aubrey correctly says, government and government has failed, first and foremost, but the board has failed at the highest level. And why are we not demanding serious change in the terms of how these boards are structured and how decisions are taken for board members that are appointed to these state-owned companies? As Numsa, we have consistently said that trade unions, together with civil society, must be represented on those boards. That way, we can actually guarantee absolute transparency in terms of how these companies are run. We, as members of the public, can actually take a role and get a full understanding in terms of how decisions are taken. Yeah. At the moment, we are operating in the dark. We're operating based on reports which they give us. Yep. And why should we believe them? Why should we trust them? These entities are collapsing and have collapsed under their watch when no action was taken. So if we want changes, we need to ensure that we change the way we do things. Yep. We need to have clear representation of workers and trade unions on these boards so that we will not experience wasteful expenditure, and we will not experience any more SOEs and state-owned companies collapsing.
Phakamile, we've run out of time, but I'm going to put this question to you, the same question I asked Aubrey before I let him go. Today, or since Friday, we've heard some employees saying they've received a communique and the SABC has begun issuing redundancy letters. Redundancy is carrying on. Section 189 seems to be carrying on here at the SABC. And if it continues, retrenchments continue, as the union, Numsa, what then must happen? I think we lost the feed there too. Yeah, unfortunately, it seems that we've lost that link to Phakamile Hlubi Majola, who is the national spokesperson of Numsa there, speaking to us. It'll be interesting to get her reaction to the very last question. But interesting conversation indeed. As we heard in the past, well, throughout the day today, well, a lunch hour picket was held by SABC employees. According to our package there, hundreds of them were outside the head offices of the SABC. They were joined by that political party, the Economic Freedom Fighters, at that lunchtime picket, where they said they were against the retrenchments that Section 189 set and planned by SABC.